3 weeks ago, no one could have imagined the campaign scenario of the Harris-Wilson ticket while the Biden-Harris duo was still in play. When President Joe Biden decided to pass the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris, the American political landscape became like a high-octane action film with dramatic twists and high-speed turns. Indeed, a lot has changed rapidly in the past month for the Democratic Party in American politics since President Biden announced the end of his re-election campaign on Sunday, July 21, 2024. At the same time, Biden endorsed incumbent Vice President Kamala Harris to take his place on the Democratic ticket for the next presidential term. It can be said that the Democratic Party has gone through several significant turning points with moments of relief. Although it is still too early to determine whether this midstream change will help the Democratic Party win the presidential election in early November, it has at least made the White House race much more dynamic. With the election just 90 days away, many Democrats feel that their party no longer has time to waste on internal divisions. They are trying to overcome internal strife to focus on and promote the values of their party in the upcoming election with Kamala Harris as their representative. Following the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the Republican Party's morale soared after its national convention on July 15, 2024. The Republican Party is united in its support for former President Donald Trump as its presidential candidate, and many views him as divinely favored. Although Trump faces 34 serious charges, his supporters remain more loyal than ever. Previously, the vibrant picture of the Republican Party might have made many Democrats envious as they prepared for their own convention on August 19, 2024. But now, the Democratic Party has united behind Vice President Harris as she quickly garnered endorsement from numerous party leaders, elites, and Democratic donors. In less than a day, she secured the support of enough Democratic delegates to ensure her official nomination at the upcoming Democratic National Convention. Furthermore, if we consider fundraising as another indicator of solidarity within the Democratic Party, Harris has set various records. In the first 24 hours after replacing Biden as the candidate, Harris raised a record $81 million. This is the largest single-day fundraising increase for any candidate to date. Within a week, her campaign had raised $200 million. Feeling optimistic about the remaining time, an NPR, PBS News, and Marist poll released on Tuesday, August 6, shows Harris leading Trump by 3 percentage points, with 48% to Trump's 45%, while independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy trails behind at 5%. The historic candidate shift within the Democratic Party, though the final effectiveness remains to be seen, reflects the party's agility and sensitivity to voter concerns. Not only do the candidates differ significantly in their appeal and fundraising amounts, but the Democratic and Republican presidential candidates also have starkly contrasting views on tax and business issues, though there are similarities as well. Nevertheless, in terms of economic policy, Harris is considered to be at a disadvantage compared to Trump. Former President Donald Trump promises to advance economic policies similar to those of his previous term, while opponent Kamala Harris is expected to continue the economic agenda of President Joe Biden. Trump left a significant economic legacy during his first term, including massive tax cuts, deregulation for industries, and a trade war with economic rivals, especially China. If re-elected in November, these will be his policy priorities. On the other hand, throughout President Biden's term, inflation has been the most prominent economic issue. It has overshadowed his accomplishments, such as a strong labor market with significant job growth and low unemployment rates, improvements in the economic conditions of low-income workers, and major investments in green energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. Persistent inflation and the cumulative effects of rising prices have weakened support for Biden. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris will continue Biden's economic agenda. However, she has also started to propose some of her own ideas, focusing mainly on issues close to American families, such as paid leave and childcare support, rather than getting bogged down in contentious policy debates. Harris' stance will directly compete with Trump's campaign, which is persuading voters that he is the president for working people. According to the Financial Times, with inflation continuing to decrease from its record high in 2022 and the Federal Reserve preparing to lower interest rates, Harris enters the race with a more favorable economic outlook. The Financial Times notes that if she can harness this momentum, she might also inspire optimism with her future development plans, though she will need to navigate any negative perceptions of Biden's agenda and the lingering effects of inflation. However, Harris will have to contend with the tax-cutting and deregulation champion Donald Trump, which analysts believe will not be easy. In his rallies, Trump asserts that he is the greatest deregulator in U.S. history, having untangled regulations he claims stifled businesses. He also promises to reverse many of the green energy subsidies and regulations pursued by the Biden administration. On taxes, Trump has committed to continuing tax cuts for the wealthy and businesses. In contrast, Harris remains committed to Biden's position of increasing taxes on the rich, although this stance could make it difficult for her to fund expanded social programs. Most recently, the insurance company Allantech predicted that Trump might intensify Treasury bond issuance to offset deficits from tax cuts. Similarly, regarding import tariffs, one of the concerns about Trump's potential return is his import tariff policy, which he used as a negotiating tool with other countries during his first term. He promises to impose a broad 10% tariff on imported goods, up to 60% on certain items and countries, and 100% on foreign-made vehicles, numbers that could escalate the trade war with China. Harris has not said much about tariffs, but the Biden administration has maintained several of the tariffs from the Trump era. On this issue, the Biden administration seems to have a similar stance, retaining most of the previous administration's tax policies. Regarding monetary policy and inflation, Harris has yet to address these issues beyond criticizing businesses for profiting from rising prices. Meanwhile, Trump has pledged to tackle interest rates and inflation. However, Ellen Jett is concerned that Trump's proposed inflation, financial, and monetary policies, if enacted, could have potentially harmful effects. The company warns that this could lead to unexpected market reactions in the future. In the most extreme scenario, inflation might rise to 4% by 2025, with growth slowing to around 0% in the same year. Following President Joe Biden's decision to step down and let Vice President Kamala Harris continue the campaign, former President Donald Trump immediately commented that Harris would be easier to defeat than Biden. However, at this point, is this statement from the former president perhaps an overestimation of himself? Kamala Harris, 59, who previously served as a U.S. Senator and Attorney General of California, would be the first woman to become President of the United States if she becomes the Democratic nominee and wins the election on November 5, 2024. Her vice presidency had a somewhat unimpressive start. Last year, according to Reuters, many officials in the White House and Biden's campaign team were even concerned that she might be a burden on the campaign. However, the situation has changed significantly since she strongly defended abortion rights and made considerable efforts to attract younger voters. Some Democratic Party members believe that Harris could appeal to voter groups who support the party but are no longer enthusiastic about Biden, including voters of color, younger voters, and those dissatisfied with Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict. According to some party donors, Harris may face challenges in attracting moderate Democratic voters and independent voters who prefer Biden's centrist policies. Another issue is campaign costs. Harris will inherit the funds raised by Biden's campaign, as well as the campaign's infrastructure. This is a significant advantage with just under 4 months remaining until the election. Nevertheless, the campaign will still need to raise hundreds of millions of dollars before November to effectively campaign, and fundraising is not Harris' strong suit. As a potential Democratic presidential candidate in the 2020 election, Harris lagged behind Biden in fundraising. Despite these issues, many Democratic Party members believe that her prosecutorial background could help her shine in a direct debate with Trump, who has recently been convicted. On the other hand, Republican attacks on Harris are increasing as she is seen as a potential replacement for Biden. Some critics are revisiting arguments from the 2020 race, claiming that Harris smiled too much, lacked significant challenges, and was not sufficiently qualified. Kelly Dibma, an expert at Rutgers University, argues that these attacks reflect a disregard and devaluation of women of color in politics, a phenomenon that has historically occurred and persists today. As the 2024 U.S. presidential election moves into a decisive phase, it is clear that the race for the White House will be highly competitive and will introduce new factors significantly impacting the battle between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Since President Joe Biden announced his withdrawal from the re-election effort over 2 weeks ago, the race has become extremely dynamic. Harris, now the Democratic frontrunner, is in the process of selecting a suitable running mate to strengthen her campaign. Currently, Harris' choices are narrowing between two prominent candidates: Pennsylvania Governor George Shapiro and Minnesota Governor Tim Walsh. While Arizona Senator Mark Kelly remains a potential option, Shapiro and Walsh are emerging as the leading candidates. Shapiro, 51, is a rising star in the Democratic Party, and his popularity in the community could be a significant advantage for Harris in Pennsylvania, a key battleground state. Meanwhile, Walsh, 60, is a progressive leader whose record might help solidify support in Midwestern states like Wisconsin and Michigan, which could be the best path for Harris to reach the White House. Thus, selecting a running mate is the first and most critical decision a presidential candidate must make. It is not only a strategic move to bolster the campaign but also to ensure that the vice presidential candidate can assume a leadership role if necessary. Harris must ensure that her choice is not only strategically sound but also does not undermine her own success. The choice of vice president is both a crucial political decision and a response to external pressures affecting Harris' campaign. The global stock market decline has led to a significant drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, along with rising unemployment rates and fears of a recession. These factors could increase dissatisfaction with the current economy, although there are no signs of a crisis as severe as the one in 2008. Meanwhile, the ongoing tensions in the Middle East are also adding pressure. Data suggests that the likelihood of a comprehensive regional war between Iran and Israel could involve U.S. intervention. Harris' response to these developments will be closely monitored, especially as recent attacks have heightened tensions in the region. Former President Donald Trump, Harris' main opponent, has struggled to adjust his campaign to counter this new challenger. Trump has criticized the stock market decline and warned of a potential Third World War, attempting to use these issues to undermine Harris' credibility. He is also trying to link Harris to the failures of the Biden administration while seeking to stir public feelings of loss of control. With Harris entering the 2024 presidential race, the current political climate is more tense than ever. The race is intensifying, with polls showing Trump and Harris nearly even. The success of Harris' campaign will depend on whether her choice of running mate can make a positive impact on the race. Therefore, the event in Philadelphia next week will be a crucial turning point in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. If Harris successfully selects a running mate, it could give her campaign a new momentum. The U.S. presidential race, one of the most closely watched political events globally, has shifted dramatically in the final 100 days leading up to the election, following President Joe Biden's withdrawal. While the Democratic Party enthusiastically welcomes Vice President Kamala Harris into the presidential race with continuous fundraising efforts, former President Donald Trump and the Republican Party struggle to adapt to Biden's exit by finding ways to criticize Harris. Biden's unexpected departure from the presidential race has dramatically altered this year's election, transforming the race to the White House from a marathon to a sprint. As the Democratic Party scrambles to introduce a new candidate on a tight timeline, the Republican Party seems reactive, struggling to create an advantage for Trump against a new opponent who is quite different from the familiar 81-year-old white man they were used to despite the barrage of criticism and mutual attacks. Harris' recent fundraising event in Massachusetts on July 27 is expected to raise $1.4 million for her campaign. As of July 28, Harris' campaign team reported that they had raised $126 million in just 3 days and over $200 million in less than a week since Biden announced his withdrawal from the presidential race on July 21, U.S. time. These results are a significant achievement for the Democratic Party, especially considering that Trump and the Republican Party had almost complete financial dominance as of June 2024. The situation has changed dramatically, with widespread dissatisfaction with Biden following his debate with Trump. It seems people are choosing the lesser of two evils. However, Harris remains energetic. An American voter participating in Harris' fundraising event in Massachusetts told the Washington Post that in a recent Wall Street Journal poll, 49% of voters supported Trump and 47% said they would vote for Harris. Although Harris is still trailing Trump, this indicates a positive trend for the Democratic Party compared to previous polls where Trump led Biden by 6%. In addition to the Wall Street Journal poll, a Defense News survey of battleground states shows Trump and Harris are closely competitive. In Minnesota alone, Harris leads Trump by 6 points. Recent Trump supporters have reiterated criticisms of Harris' immigration policies, her replacing Biden, and have released publications accusing her of issues related to Biden. The former Republican president appears to be attacking Harris on all fronts, from border policy and inflation to abortion, even mispronouncing her name and criticizing her laughter. Conversely, Harris' allies continuously praise her for her roles as a prosecutor, California Attorney General, and U.S. Vice President, and have pledged tens of millions of dollars to support Harris before the Democratic National Convention in August. Additionally, Harris supporters are increasingly attacking Trump, even criticizing Senator James David Vance, Trump's vice presidential pick, for having views that allegedly do not align with American values, particularly regarding his past negative comments about the Democratic Party and Harris' personal life from 3 years ago. The U.S. presidential election is entering its final stretch with fierce competition between the top candidates, Trump and Harris. Harris' entry into the 2024 White House race has shaken up the heated political landscape before the election, bringing a fresh momentum to the Democratic Party. This presents a significant challenge for Trump as Harris stands on the brink of becoming the first female U.S. president and the second person of color to hold the office. We will continue to provide updates on the latest developments in the U.S. election campaign. Goodbye for now, and we look forward to seeing you in the next videos.